Exactly.
This broadcast is live. Awesome. What's going on, everybody?
There we go.
Okay, now.
All right. So did you get a chance to share it? We are on with my man. I still call you M dot dot dot.
That works for me. That works for me. You ain't gonna get no argument out of me.
I still call you M dot dot. Get alive before it's 10 a.m. Right. I still call you M dot dot
like,
because you.
Go ahead. You said because of what?
Because that's who you are to me. That's who you are to me. The M dot dot rapper from back in our day. Back in our day when we were this whole youth group and singing and doing theater and all kinds of stuff. And so that's who you are. You have always been to me. Is the M dot dot. I remember you used to be this smooth kid, showing up, doing your rap, and just enjoying yourself. You had such an amazing flow and an amazing spirit, just amazing, absolutely amazing. I have always loved your music, and I've always tried to keep up with you, to see what you were doing, see what you were up to. Always trying to keep up with the M dot dot master.
I'm grateful, Louise, because you were an inspiration and you were off limits by the young people. In other words, like at that church, I learned at that church that you were part of, I learned how to be able to look at women without going there in the mind as normally men do. You know what I'm saying? And so what I was fascinated by is I have never in my life met anybody who had a dentist for a husband. You were this artist. You were an artist, and you were doing this art and whatever else. And then I listened to some of your music. You got some music out and everything like that. And then it's like, so you would think that you would have, a poet, or some, weird and wacky. No, I'm a dentist.
I learned early on that you didn't want to go around mixing those kind of creative flows together. It sometimes works and it doesn't. It doesn't always work. I'll put it that way. So somebody had to be in there making the money. I'll put it that way. Somebody had to be,
to pay for the art.
Somebody had to be in there making the money to pay for the art. That's you have to look at it that way. Like a lot of times we don't look at things in that way, and not saying that that's how you always want to look at it, but somebody has to be in there,
So how many years have you guys accomplished together?
Oh, we've been together for, I would say it's 20 something. I always tell people if you keep count, it must be rough. So I know
That's why there's a book of Numbers, because Numbers was rough.
it's like 20 years and 37 days and 16 months and 25 hours.
So you haven't had to sing Negro spirituals in your marriage, like
I have
get
not.
through it.
I'm not saying we haven't had our rocky moments and rocky roads, but I have learned over the years that some things just come with getting to know somebody. It just some things just come with getting to know who you are in the midst of getting to know who they are.
Right.
Some things just come with that. And, we can go through life assuming that, this is, watching the fairy tales and the happy ever afters and all that kind of stuff, which I love. I'm a big fairy taler. But I don't know if you remember, his name was Pastor Greenup, and he used to come and talk about marriage. They called him the marriage doctor. And I tell people all the time, I said, Pastor Greenup prepared me for marriage, because he would always say, love may be blind, but marriage will open both your eyes.
Both your eyes. So what I love is, okay, so as an artist, Louise, one of the things I'm doing during our discussion is I'm gonna be driving to a destination. I told you before we started, and those of you who are watching, when I get there, as we're talking, you will see the significance of where I show you. I only have 8 miles to get there, so as we talk, you'll see how an artist flows, because we're making art. This is a program. So, so go ahead, Louise. What I'm grateful for is we met in what year?
Ooh, listen to you, Matthew. Now you're trying to date me.
No, I have an idea.
Okay, you tell me, because I'm not sure. I'm horrible with times and things.
So I came to the church that you and I were a member of in late 1997, early 1998. It might have, I don't know if it was winter exactly, but I remember the service, and here's what happened.
Okay.
So the pastor, let me ask you a question. Did we say we were going to use names and people? Did we say we was going all the way there?
We probably won't use names and people, because,
okay.
Yeah, it depends on where it's going,
Yeah, right. So the pastor, this is how I ended up joining the church. So prior to me coming there, my old pastor, very good. You swapped us, because I'm on that side. That was very brilliant of you to do. I just peeped that. So the pastor that I was with out in Texas, that I got saved at, he had preached a sermon to the whole congregation, and he went on all these rabbit trails and all that. And when I came back to Chicago, I saw on TV the sermon that my pastor had preached. I said, what? I didn't know that preacher plagiarism was even a thing. Did you know that? That preachers plagiarize. I said, listen, my pastor, the one out in Texas, he preached it like, I'm talking about, you got the rabbit trails and stuff and personal stories. He used anecdotes from the other person's children's life as their own. I said, what are you doing? What?
Really?
Yes, I'm talking about, I saw, it was in 1996 or early 1997 when I was sitting there when he was preaching it. And then late 97, I came home and I was watching Christian TV, and I saw everything he said. I said, wow, unbelievable. I mean, it broke my heart a little bit. So when I came to that church, when I came to our church for the first time, the pastor got up and said, listen, there's something y'all need to hear. The John Bevere, it was amazing. And then the pastor sat down and we listened to a sermon tape. I said, what? So that pastor pastor did not plagiarize. And at that moment, for some reason, that captivated me, and that's why I joined.
Mm, mm,
Because
mm.
you know what I'm saying? Because that just happened. So why did you join? What made you join?
Oh, that one, I originally joined that church. I originally joined the Father Church,
Right.
and this one was on my side of town. And so I originally joined the Father Church because it was a part of another ministry I was in, and I was actually in a play called Talking About Church Folks.
Okay.
And it was a huge thing, and this particular church was making tons of money off of that particular musical, and I loved doing it. But it was interesting. And so the pastor of the Father Church would come there, and he had spoken there. And once he had spoken there, I was like, okay, I have to find this church. I have to find this church because
Mm.
he spoke truth, he spoke reality. And so I went off to find that particular ministry, and it just so happens he was actually somewhere on in the area that I was in. He was near where I lived, and so that's how I ended up going there. I ended up going
Right.
there before the other pastor had taken over, had been put as the pastor of that church. I went there when it
Right.
was Father Church. And so this was before the pastor took over. So I was there
Right.
early on.
Did he have a lot of hair?
Huh?
Did he have hair?
At the time, no.
Did the father have hair?
A little bit on the side.
Did the father have hair?
Not really.
Did he
No,
have
it was going out. It was
hair?
going out. It was going out. He had a little bit of hair at the time. You're freezing up, Matthew. Yeah, he had a little bit of hair at the time. And
So that means he's maintained his. Yeah, it's a little bit.
yeah, so I was with that ministry for a good while. I was with that ministry for a good while.
It was low.
So we're with Matthew, and he's driving. So just know, guys, every now and then we might get a little freeze up on my end. And so he's recycling. But we are here with Matthew Ellipsis, and he actually does a broadcast as well.
Don't worry, I just got.
Mm-hmm. He actually does a broadcast as well. So we're actually simulcasting.
Oh, really?
Is that what simulcasting with Matthew? His people are joining in with us as well on his channel. So actually, we could have brought. It would have been kind of fun to bring that.
And my signal strength is a little bit.
Right. Yeah, he's got a little bit.
No,
That's because
my signal is just a little. I'm driving, so my signal, yeah.
Right. So your signal goes.
Don't worry, it's getting better right now. I see it.
Right. Yeah, you can tell your signal goes with the traffic. Trust me, I've been there. I've been on the road.
Okay, you can hear me better?
I can hear you better now. Yeah. So, but yeah, at that time I was.
Because I got 1 bar, 2 bars. Yeah.
I was a part of the worship team during that time, and I did a lot of. That's when we were doing stuff with really large ministries, and even with Benny Hinn came into town, we did worship with Benny Hinn and all of those kind of things. I mean, we did a lot of really big stuff with the main church. So, and I
really,
oh yeah, we were. They did a lot of huge. I mean, you're talking about UIC's big arena. We would be in their large arena doing worship services. When Benny Hinn came to town, we were part of that worship team. I don't know if you remember what were their names. I can't remember, but they were big.
Carl. You talking about like Carl? You talking about like Carl?
No, this Carl. Was I can't remember their names because I don't see them much anymore. But they were a part with the larger church, and they had some pretty big ministries, and we do they'd have these big worship services at the UIC arena, and we'd go and do worship with them. I mean, we had Bynum.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think his name was Tom Bynum, and we'd go, and I mean, we just stump it up. I mean, we had a lot of fun worshiping and doing some pretty incredible worship services during that time. And so this was with the main when I was with the main ministry, when I was with the father ministry, and then we broke off to this church. This was actually a church plant, and so I ended up staying with the church plant.
Now, do you remember what year that was for you?
Oh gosh, no, I don't.
No.
It was long ago in history.
Well, for me, that was the second location. The location that where I got there was the final.
Yeah, that was the second location. Yeah, that was our second location. Right. Mm-hmm.
So when I got there, I used to go to the Sunday both services. It was an 8 o'clock and a 10:30.
Right.
And then there was Monday school, so I come back on. Pastor Brian would do the 12 o'clock, and then he would also do the 7 o'clock. And then there was Wednesday, you know, and so I would be there for Wednesday, and then Thursday was youth ministry. So how did that begin?
Actually, that we started that when we got over to that, because I wasn't a part of the youth ministry. I'm trying to think if I was a part of the youth ministry at the original church, because I've always worked with youth. I've always worked with the youth ministry, and so I'm trying to think if I was a part of it. So I must have been a part of it there as well, but it became larger when we went over to the other church. Because then that's when the assistant pastor and his wife took over. That's when they took over.
And the assistant pastor is Brian O'Neill, and and his wife Carl O'Neill. And I kind of looked at both of them as, you know, co-pastors, laborers of doing that. So continue. Go ahead. So did they have to be a part of it?
Right. And so because we were all kind of in the same sphere. I feel like we all had like the same kind of vibe. You know, I was one of those people, because at that time I was working for the Park District, and I did a lot of theater and a lot of drama. And so we all kind of had the same vibe. We all kind of knew what we wanted to do. We all knew that we wanted to do outreach. We knew that we wanted to propel the youth into a different mindset of thinking about their relationship with Christ and their mission. You know, it was like wanting to put the young people on, you know, give them a mission, and not just inside the walls of the church, but just in general, putting them out there. Oh, yeah, she said Monday school and the youth ministry grew as membership grew. Yeah. So that's Tina.
Oh, who is that? Is that Tina Augustus?
Yeah, that's Tina. Hey, Tina.
Okay, listen. Okay, Tina Augustus. Now, you know what? Let me talk for a second. Talk to Tina Augustus. Pastor Tina Augustus, I was thinking about you this morning. And I didn't call you like I normally would. Because whenever I think about somebody, I try to call them, and I know you up early. So I'm glad you're watching, Pastor Tina Augustus. I need to say something to you, ma'am. Don't act like I don't exist, Tina. Okay, I exist. My life matters, Pastor Tina Augustus. So treat me like I exist. You know, my phone number is still the same. I still get your Elevate Services emails sometimes when you send it. Okay, act like I exist. Right now, I am a wait, let me see. How can I say this? I am a horse church throw away from you right now. That sounds ridiculous, don't it? So treat me like I exist, ma'am. Okay, back to the show. That was my commercial break.
Okay, all right. Well,
We family. Me and her is family, and she acts like I don't exist right now, and I do. So treat me like it, okay? Look, I
Okay.
had a show. I had a show finna happen, and her son was like, I won't be going. I'm like, come on, man, y'all, come on, y'all know what I do. Y'all
Look
better
at her.
treat me
She
like
said,
I
here
exist,
she goes.
okay?
She said, she's treating you like you exist now. She says, "Hey, Matt," and then she's
Yeah,
LOL.
yeah. She better LOL 5 across her lips. Let me put that in the camera right there.
All right,
So
Tina.
she
Tina's
better
like, all right.
she better LOL and email. She better email OL, okay?
All right, Tina. So
All right,
email
go
him,
ahead. Yeah,
call
she know
him.
my email is m3dots@yahoo.com. Same
There you
email
go.
has been for. Yeah. So
All
anyway,
right.
back to what she was saying. I just needed to say thank you and let all of the people that's talking get them to talk. I'm gonna get to my phone and then so I can see who's talking on my side. But whoever's
Uh-huh.
talking to their side, make them a part of the conversation. Go ahead now,
Okay,
Louise. She
I
was
will.
crazy, man.
So now you guys know Matt is raw and up close and in person. So I just want you all to know that there is no hold barred.
As of 2021,
Mm-hmm.
I've had enough. I was doing COVID lock-in for years before there was COVID.
Right.
I was
What you
wearing neck gaiters 6 and 7 years before, you know.
mm-hmm.
So
So
yeah.
Matt is
So now
saying this
I'm
this
out
is
now.
you out. This is like Matt is done with it. He is coming, he is for real
I'm
coming out,
here.
coming.
You know what you got? I'm streaming live. I'm on the same commitment. Me and Louise were of the same spirit, saying we're gonna stream and broadcast. We didn't even talk to each other.
Right. You can't stop the signal. You can't stop. We're trying to stay on the signal. But yeah, so that's the whole thing. So Matt and I actually got together. We just talked last week
Yes,
and
ma'am.
decided to do a show together because this is, and just be real and upfront with everybody. One of the things I told Matt is that because we were talking about church and things like that, and I shared with Matt, I said, if anybody should have been left church years ago, it would have been me. If if I base my salvation on men, if I base my salvation
Right,
on the human being, the nature, and not just men but women,
right.
but I just say men in general because that's how we relate to the human
Of
race.
course.
And
Mankind.
so mankind, right? If we based it, but I tell them, I said, but I'm grateful because I base my relationship with Christ on Christ alone. Because one of the things that we tend to do is we tend to measure God by man's standard, which we should be measuring man by God's standards. And we
Mm,
do that quite
mm.
often where we measure God by man's standards. So that brings God down to here. But we need to measure man by God's standards and bring man up. And so since we do that, that's
Okay,
how
hold on for a
come.
second. Hold on for a
Go
second.
ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, my dad needs to cuss me out for a second. Hold on, just for a second. Let me just. My dad, he needs to cuss me out. I gotta take a cuss out.
All right. Matt is on the phone with his father, hanging out with his dad. He said that he has his father had. So I'm
Okay.
gonna go ahead and put a quick video on for you guys. All right, you back, Matt? Oh, he's still. I think Matt's still getting blasted out. Still getting blasted out with his dad. So,
I got
but
you. Hey, Dad,
I
please,
just want to let you guys
Dad,
know.
I have to call you back. I'm actually right now
Yeah,
doing the radio
I just want to let you guys know you can tune in to Living Out Loud every day from at 10 o'clock, from 10 to 11. We love, 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 love having you guys, want you guys to join in. Also, if you're hanging out, I'm also a part of something called Creative Quarantine, and we're having a lot of fun over there. Stop over and check us out on Creative Quarantine. We're doing a lot of different projects and a lot of different things. You get to follow the artists around in their studios, pretty much like when I did the Beauty of Blackness Fine Art show. We enjoyed doing that as well. So definitely join us on, especially today, because we'll be hanging out at 10 o'clock today. So, I mean, not 10 o'clock, we'll be hanging out at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, 4 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. We will be on the air. So definitely kind of join in and see what we're doing. Check us out, have some fun. And then we're kind of waiting for Matt. It looks like he's getting set up in his area because he stopped driving, woohoo, which is always wonderful. And then we're going to tune back in with him. I think he is ready and good to go. Let's see. So you ready, Matt? There you go. Matt's sitting down. He's taking his little seat. He done ran out somewhere. So Matt is going to come back because I'm just going to let you know, he is a fireball. And he was a fireball back in the day when he was a part of the youth ministry. He has just been a fireball. And he was always, for me, one of those people that just really, really, really wanted to speak and know the truth and share the truth. He was one of those young men that was not trying to be governed by what was going on around him, but just wanted the reality, just wanted the truth about the matter. And so that's one of the things that we want to, I think Matt wants to share. Here he is. Matt, can you hear me? Okay, I can't hear you though. I can't hear you, Matt. I can't hear you. No, we can't hear you. Hold on, Matt's having a little, I think he's reconnecting.
Hold on.
Oh, I guess he's done. Okay, I can hear you now. I think he's reconnecting. There you go.
Yeah,
right,
there we go. Now, is something wrong with my video?
Oh, now I need to see your picture. Now we just have a weird little image. So go ahead and click your camera back on.
Do I need to refresh?
No. Go ahead and click your camera back on. It's right next to your mute button. It says
okay.
There you go.
Okay, gotcha.
There you go. So there's Matt. So hey, Matt. Matt's hanging out.
Can you grab me my gray coat?
Are you cold out there, Matt?
Yes. Let me tell you. I'm on location. I am here at Christian Concepts International. All right.
Oh, okay.
So this is where Pastor Brian. No, my gray coat, the actual coat.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to hit the button. Yeah, the gray coat.
Matt is a militant.
So,
you can see he's got on his army and fatigue gear.
Yeah. And so what I was doing is only 8 miles away, and what I wanted to do as a background is show the church that has given me the most love. Mm-hmm. Because it started in youth ministry.
Right.
This is what Pastor Brian and Pastor Carla, this is where they do their thing. So right in here, I believe that's their vehicle. Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, they might be in there. And they might look outside and see me and come outside. And then I'll be happy because then I'll get a chance to see them. So I'm doing this. I don't know if you can tag, if you are in a position to tag Pastor Carla and Pastor Brian, you can tag them.
Okay,
just so they can see it. Just so they can see it. And then they'll look outside and then they'll become part of the show. And that is the magic.
Okay, let's see if we can get those two. Let's see if we can get those two tagged on here.
Don't try to get listen. Yeah, just get them. Don't tell them to come out. Like if they miss it, they just miss it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No. I'll do a tag of them. Hold on. Let me see. Let's see.
So I'll say about Pastor Brian and Pastor Carla, right? As she's doing that. So when I joined the youth ministry, Pastor Brian, what he would do is, he just like Louise, they were trying to teach us like how to be kingdom of God, how to be on whatever God mission is for you. Mission.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy that God set it up for me to be a part of Pastor Brian and Pastor Carla over the years because I've got to my own personal life see the fruit of they used to 21, 22, 23, 24. I see that whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thank God for them. I tell them a bunch of every chance that I get that, you know, their ministry to all of us was so important, was vital, was critical, and my life much better because I spent as many uh, uh we did the church uh
I think we're
I
getting okay. Uh-huh.
my head for you to leave. But I
Let me see something.
if they miss it, they just miss it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, no, no. I ain't like. Uh-huh. I'm trying to see if you well, we might be getting a little interruptions. Okay, there we go. Uh-huh.
leave. I was there we go. I
Uh-huh.
see
Yeah, so I was able to share it with them. I think your screen might have gone dark. I'm looking at it from the StreamYard because Matt is outside, and so his connections are going to be sporadic. Just to let you guys know, Matt's going to have some sporadic connections because he is outside. But I'm so looking forward to just hanging out with them and chatting. I'm going to just have a look right quick. Oh, I forgot. Let me just do this really quick. There we go. So just you guys can make some comments. Let us know you're out there hanging out with us. We love having you on the show. This is actually our first time doing it where our guest is actually on the road and he's out here um, kind of hanging out with us. This is really cool. So like I said, I am so excited to be able to be here with you. And I'm glad you guys have joined in. It's always a lot of fun. And I know a lot of times I think lately I haven't had a show every single Tuesday because like I said, I am in the middle of creative quarantine. I'm going to take you over to my Louise Cutler studio page. So my background will change up a bit. So I just want to show you, this is Creative Quarantine. I'm a part of the Creative Quarantine Springfield, and it has been pretty phenomenal. And I have been live streaming from my studio every day. I think I might have missed a day, but pretty much live streaming from my studio every day. And I'm actually doing this with 12 other artists, 12 other amazing artists, if I may say so, amazing artists. And we have all been live streaming from our studios. So if you want to see some really cool stuff, we're going to be doing this for the entire month of January, I think I see Matt popping back up. So we're going to bring Matt back up. We're going to go back over to Living Out Loud because I bounce in between. And we're going to bring Matt back up. Let's see. All right. Hey, Matt, are you there?
Let me set up my Bluetooth speakers.
There you go. Okay. All right. Get your speakers set up.
Should say I'm connected.
I see you. I can hear you.
Yep, I
So
know you can hear me, right? Oh, wait,
mhm,
you can hear me right now, right?
yeah, all right. So we got Matt back, and he is out in front of Christian Concepts, which is
PCI, baby.
Pastor Brian and Sister Carla's ministry. And
Pastor
actually,
Carl. Yep.
this was the Pastor Brian and Sister Carla were actually the ones that were over the youth ministry that we're talking about, and that's what Matt is talking about. How they both influenced his life. They were very. I always tell people, and I share this story all the time. There was a message that Pastor Brian had ministered years ago, and that message stays with me. And it was called "What's Worse, the Snake Bite or the Poison?" And
Ooh.
that message, I take that message everywhere, and I share that with other people when they're dealing with things that they think they're dealing with, but then reality kicks in and they realize that they are actually dealing with the poison that was left behind the incident. And so that particular message, I have lived that message throughout my life. I have shared that word for a long time, because I think that was a huge it was a huge turning point in my life, that particular message, because it allowed me to forgive people that I had not forgiven. And so that was a pretty profound message in my life. I think Matt is still jumping. There we go. And that was a pretty
Yes. No, I got
profound,
it now. I got it set up now.
right? Yeah. So I
Pastor
don't
Brian was
know if
always
you were.
good at these messages.
Yeah, he was. He
Yeah.
had some great
Listen. One of the
messages.
best moments. One of the best moments for me with like a message like that was it was a Monday school. I still have the cassette, and
You're
it's
right. It
where a
was. It was one
lady
of
was
his Monday
asking
schools.
about tithing.
Mhm, mhm.
Monday school, baby. I'm telling you. And so the lady asked, my husband, he doesn't want me to tithe and blah 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 whatever, right? But I still get an allowance. So he gave
No,
her,
your
whatever
voice is
advice that
altered.
is altered.
Hmm.
Hold on, let me restart these headphones.
Okay.
Let me restart the headphones.
Not that I didn't enjoy that whole deep voice thing.
A little bit better.
Yeah, that's
One,
better.
two, three. Is it a
You
little bit
def-
better?
uh-huh. Yep. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Better right now?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Okay. So she was asking about tithing, and he gave her an answer, and then she said, and these words forever stayed in my heart. She said, "But I tried that, Pastor." And then Pastor Brian took about a 5 minute thing where he said, "Listen, this is not a I tried that, Pastor type of gospel." He said,
Hmm.
"This is a you if it doesn't work, you need to figure out what you got to do to make it work." And I'm a soldier.
Right.
I've been in the military since I was 17. I got saved when I was
Hmm.
19, and I'm sitting and listening to his sermon when I was 21, 22, 23. That meant to me, that's just like in the military. If it
Hmm.
don't work, you need to figure out what's gonna make it work.
What's gonna make it work? Hmm.
Man, I'm talking about it's so many things that Pastor Brian taught. He used to say, listen, the message you get today on Sunday, you're gonna experience it at some point this week. So
Hmm.
that's just like in the military. Military say if you hear something, get ready because it might be on the test. And I'm
Hmm.
telling you, Pastor Brian gave us so much. And so that time period was such an important part of my development because
Hmm.
I was in my 20s. I was celibate. Um, I wasn't hitting on no bunch of women. I was working on my albums. I was working
Hmm.
on the mission. And so let me ask you this, Louise. When you guys were setting it up, all them people, how did y'all deal with the regular nature of young adults and their loins? Young adults want, how did
Well,
y'all
but that
deal
was
with
just
that?
it. It's like, Pastor Brian, he dealt with, he had a lot of different messages that dealt with things, but it was more about creating that love pattern with Christ. because you can put rules down, you can put laws down. Everybody already understood the Bible. We shared what the Bible said. The Bible says this, the Bible says that. But then now it's like, how do you carry that out? How do you live that life? How do you do that? And then as adults, the young people are like, well, hey, you guys are married, or you're old, or you're this and you're that. And don't think the single adults weren't dealing with some of the same things that the young people were dealing with, because they were. I mean, they were at that time. I mean, I wasn't always married. So a lot of the adults, and so, I mean, we had to teach them in the same way that we had to live it. It's a sacrifice. And there's this new book I'm just reading, is called Change of Affections. And it's actually about this. He's the guy, he was a homosexual, and his affections were, and probably still is, towards men. And I love the way he deals with it in the book, because he says that he changed his affection. Like, a lot of times we look at people and like, oh, they've been cured of homosexuality, or they've been cured of that. But in the book, it talks about how his affections had changed. He chose Christ over that affection. He chose God. And a lot of times we look at it as, and it's the same thing. It's when we as people, you might have a promiscuous lifestyle or things like that, but it's a matter of, what do you value more? Do you value your relationship with Christ more, or do you value your sexuality more? And so that's why this book was profound. And that's basically how we have to look at things. And coming up in church, for me, there was a lot of missing pieces to how to deal with life. There was a lot of missing pieces, but I'm always grateful, because one of the things that my older sister would always share with me, and she said, Louise, always study the word for yourself. Study to show yourself approved. That's the Bible. And so I'm grateful, because I've always studied the word myself. So, because man can get off. Man can, it's like, so you don't always follow, you go to church, and I always remember, you take the meat and spit out the bone. And that is very profound, because you take the meat and then you spit out the bones, because anytime you have a man and he's ministering, you're going to have meat and then you're going to have bones. And what I mean by that is, you're going to have the meat of the word, and then you're going to have some of that person's personality in there. You're going to have some of that person's prejudices in there. You're going to have some of that person's pride in there. You're going to have some of that person's. And so you take the meat of the word, and then you dispense with all of the bones. You take out all of their characteristics of it. And because you just want to zero in on the word of God and what the word of God is saying. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you have your relationship intact with Christ, and is not filtered through some individual. Your relationship shouldn't be filtered through. That's one of the reasons why God removed the priest, so that you could have your direct relationship with him. So
that's still a problem today?
Mm-hmm. Oh, with people having their direct relationship?
Problem today in terms of people?
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, because people do not. Yeah, it's still a problem, because people don't. There's a lot of people where they still have it's still filtered. It's still filtered. And a lot of that is just people don't want to study the word. They feel that, I got a dynamite pastor. I got this, I got that. And you pedestal them up and you pedestal them up. And then when they fall, when you see pastors fall, and you're like, oh, that was a pastor. It's like, you're right. That was a man. And men sin, and men fall, and men make mistakes, and men do this, and men do that. Why? Because they're human. They're human beings. The Bible says we all have sinned and fallen short, which means that we have a sin nature. We haven't made it to glory yet. We haven't reached perfection yet. And so we have that sin nature. It's always in there. It's always going to be in there. And so to look at human beings as if they are gods, that's not what God is planning. God wants a one-on-one relationship with us. Even in church, he says not to forsake the assembling of yourselves together. But his whole thing is you go vertical, not, this is for assembling yourself. but this is for connecting with me. And so our whole purpose is to connect with Christ and on a personal relationship. And I'm grateful that I've had the experiences in churches that I've had, because being an artist, you always feel a little bit outcast. You don't really connect. I mean, you want to, but you don't. You know, it's almost like this acceptance thing is always really weird. And I could say that's one of the things that I really loved about Pastor Brian and Carla, because out of everybody in ministry, they were very acceptant of who I was. And they weren't like most churches, you feel like they just use you as an artist. Oh, can you do this or can you do that? Whereas with those two, you just connected with them, and it wasn't about, oh, well, can you do this and can you do this and can you do it wasn't that. It was more exploring your creativity and sharing it with the rest of the world. You didn't feel as if you had to become something you were not.
Empowering too.
Right. And that was they did a lot.
It's like
that was the wonderful thing they did. They empowered you to be who you were. And that's one of the things that I always look to do when I work with youth, is to help them to become who God had created them to be, not to become what man wanted them to be or what church wanted them to be. Because that's the biggest problem a lot of times with church is trying to mold you into something that they can accept. Church, a lot of times, church is trying to create their own image, all these little bit of images. Sometimes you go to church and everybody looks the same, everybody dresses the same, everybody. I think I told you a story. I've had I go into the pastor's office because they're not caring for. I was very artistic, and everywhere I've gone, I've always been very artistic. And I have the pastor. I had one pastor years ago stand up in the middle of service on the pool at his little stage, and he says, "Stop dressing like Louise." He told the entire congregation to stop dressing like me.
What?
And I was like, okay, this is interesting that your entire church decided to be free, because that's my thing is, so your whole church of young people decided to be free. Because that's me. I was just a free, I'm just free flowing, because I was never into the church lady clothes or all of that kind of stuff. I was just free flowing, wore my clothes.
You would look so great in church lady clothes. With your big old hat and a type of blocky type of outfit.
I know, with sparkles all on it, with rhinestones. Yes. Yeah, and then I had
that's what they call it.
And I've had a lot of and then I had another church where my last church that was in actual Chicago, where they were took me into the office, and because they didn't, wanted to change my dress again, and said, well, and I was like, well, I like the way I dress, and they asked me, well, don't you like the way the first lady of the church, because that's what they were called, the first lady of the church, dress? And I said, no, she dressed like a church lady. I'm not dressing like a church lady. And I think he got offended. But for me, I'm like, I'm not dressing like a church lady. My family, I grew up in a Baptist church. My family could outdress anybody on the planet. And if I didn't change over for them to dress like them, I'm definitely not going to conform, because that's not who God created me to be. And so often in churches, they're always trying to change who you are. They're always trying to conform, make you conform and make you change, when God is saying, come as you are, be yourself. Because if God wanted all of us to look just alike, then he would have created us all to look alike. But he didn't. He created us as individuals. And that's one of the things.
Louise, you couldn't at least do it for one communion Sunday dressed like everybody.
No, I was not. I was never a conformist. And you weren't either, Matt. You were never a conformist. You were never. That's one of the things that I really loved about the youth ministry, because the youth ministry were not conformists. The ones that were conformists were not a part of the youth ministry. But the youth ministry that was formed was filled with energetic world changers, honestly, was filled with world changers, those that were going out into the world and change it. And that's what the youth ministry, that's what he was raising up at that time, is world changers. And then the enemy.
No, go ahead. And the what? Go ahead. Keep going.
And the enemy's whole plan was to destroy it. And that's the whole thing. It's like the enemy was like, okay, I can't let this happen. I can't let these youth develop and then become this army, because that's one of the things we were creating in that ministry, is an army. But the enemy was allowed to come in and just say, nope, get rid of it. Take it out.
So wait, before we get into that part, I think I want to name my top 3 personalities from the youth ministry that when I look at them now, or at least my memory of the past maybe 5 or 6 years, they were that best in show. Okay, Otis, Kanisha, and Pastor and Chris Smith. You remember Chris? So Chris married Kendra.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So you got Chris, and I look at Chris and Kendra kind of as an item, but you know, Chris was my man. You know what I'm saying? Kendra, bless you, love you, Kendra. But Chris, you know what I'm saying?
That was your guy. Okay. That was my guy.
That's Chris. Okay. So Pastor Chris, Otis, and Minister Kanisha. I think those 3, if I had if I were going to say best in show, I would take them 3, like Peter, James, and John. You know what I'm saying? Like them 3. Or I did an interview with Otis on my show. So if you look up Matt Ellipsis and Otis Gatling, if you look them up,
okay,
you will see a really you know, how thoughtful and intelligent and very, I think he's very powerful. I'm just putting the battery putting the charge on this thing. Minister Kanisha, she did she was very powerful from the standpoint of, I guess I'm gonna have to sit in here like actually regular.
That's okay.
I gotta sit in here like a regular person. So look, you might have to change the balance and put me on the other side, because I'm this way this time. But Minister Kanisha, she did a podcast or a show called Loveology. She also she got a chance to speak a lot at CCI, and she had a lot of great messages, and I was just fascinated with her on that. And then Pastor Chris, you know, he's been serving Pastor Brian and Pastor Carla in the form of son-in-law, basically.
Right.
And just, I mean, to, you know, so them 3, I would say best in show. You know what I'm saying? You know. So
what
do
is
you remember?
what's
Do you
Otis
remember
doing?
anybody that you know you would kind of, you know, top 3 or top, you know, whatever, you know?
Well, you know, I hung out a lot with Brianna. That was my girl. You know, I hung out with a lot.
You talking about Otis' sister?
Otis' sister. I hung out a lot with Brianna. I hung out a lot with Rashonda. You know, I hung out a lot with.
Wait a minute, Rashonda, was she the light skinned, the one that was the dancer?
Rashonda a dancer? Rashonda and Brianna hung out a lot together. They were good friends, but I think she was fair skinned.
Yeah, listen, Rashonda, she did a dance one time for youth ministry, one time, and I've never really been into praise dance and flags and all that other stuff, and that's because us rappers are so egotistical that there's no other art other than rap that can be accepted unless you playing a beat for the rappers. What are you doing? So
right.
But Rashonda, if we're talking about the same person, she did a praise dance, and I felt the spirit move,
Mm.
and that let me know, okay, Lord, I guess you can move through this praise dance stuff.
Yeah,
And
because her and
since then, she
Brianna used
never
to
did
do.
it no
Her
more.
and Brianna used to do praise dance.
Yeah. So who else? Who else do you remember?
Who else? I mean, Kendra, of course. Kendra was my girl.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I remember, I remember everybody kind of spotty.
Well, Anderson and Brian,
Yeah, Anderson and Brian, yep.
like their brotherhood, I their brotherhood to me was so amazing because two brothers going to church, like Jacob and Esau, or I don't know, make up any brothers
And
in the
don't
Bible.
forget
I don't know.
Bernina, their sister. She was a part of it
Oh
too.
my God. Right. Bernina, look, I used to call in my head, this is so dumb. I used to call her, look, okay, this is how I refer to Bernina. So say Bernina's name, and then I'm gonna tell you what I be thinking.
Bernina.
Princess of CCW. That's so stupid, ain't it? That's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. But there are so many people, and I want to say something to all the people that were part of youth ministry. Shatana, Ronnie,
Kiosha was a part.
hey, Gona, Kiosha, she used to sing. Man, I miss her singing.
Yeah,
I miss her
there's
singing.
several of them that are part of, it's like when I got on Facebook, because I was not going to do Facebook. I
Oh,
ended
you
up
resisted Facebook for a long time?
right. I was not going to do Facebook, and then everybody showed up.
You got Shalonda, which was Sharice, with her majestic songstress self.
Right.
My goodness, Courtney Neal, which I think her last name is Grant now.
Right.
Richard, her husband. There was so many people that touched my life in different ways there,
Right.
and I really appreciated everybody there. Let me ask you this: do you remember when they first allowed me to rap, not just in the youth ministry, but even in front of the church?
In the
Do you
church,
remember any
right?
of that?
I do remember that. I remember when that was like the beginning of the change as well. That
Really?
was, yeah, I feel like that was the beginning of the change, because then the youth ministry was beginning to get pulled into the church, because you remember it was the youth ministry, and then it was the church. It was the youth ministry was not like the dance ministry was a part of the church, the worship was a part of the church, but the youth ministry was not necessarily a part. Even the things that were going on in the youth ministry, and we were doing a lot. We were doing some outreaches on the street, and we were doing different things. But I do remember we did like a couple of church events, but not
the Power of Music Conference. That was
right,
the first
not
one.
necessarily in where you were actually rapping during the actual church service. So that's when, then the youth ministry start coming over and start being accepted, because I feel like the youth ministry was in its own little bubble, and then you had the church in its own little bubble, and so there was some really weird division going on during that time. And then with you, then it was started being accepted. Oh, okay, they're doing rap, because rap was not a readily accepted form of music back in those days, especially not in the ministry, not in the church ministry. Pastor Brian was definitely way more progressive than most. I'll put it that way. And so there was but that was also a time when there was so many things going on in the art world, and being, where God was bringing art and things back into the church. He was bringing those things back into the church. It was just whether or not the church was going to accept it as a worship form, or as a form that God had put into the church. So there was a lot of things going on during that time.
Now, you in your own time period, or I remember you said early in our discussion that if there's anybody who should have or could have just been gone from church, it's you. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I mean, I did a little bit, because it was always when people find out you're an artist, and I have been an artist pretty much since I was a kid, since I was a child. When people find out you're an artist, then it's like, oh, she's an artist. You know, it's like that means that it comes with a stigma. And especially in the church ministry, it's like, you know, you're a partier, you're this, you're a sinner, and you just all around do not fit in. You do not fit in. You know, I get people, it's like, oh, you're a Christian, you don't fit as a Christian. You know, it's like, people, my views, I find that artists have a different view of life. And that's a view that God has given artists. And I believe that God does that on purpose, because everybody else tends to get caught up in this whole church world, whereas artists look at life totally different, and we seek out life totally different. But I struggled a lot in church trying to fit in, you know, it's like, but knowing I didn't fit. And one of the things that Pastor Brian told me years ago, because I tell people I would be at the altar every Sunday repenting, you know, because I was such a sinner, you know, being an artist. And one day Pastor Brian was praying with me and he said, Louise, you know what? And I said, what? He said, you're different. And I was like, okay, tell me something I don't know. And he said, accept it. And from that day, I accepted that I was different and I would not change for anybody after that. I accepted that was the day I accepted who I was and how God had created me to be. All along, I was trying to force people to accept me as who I was, but I was not accepting me for who I was at the time. And so when he said that, it was like, ding, ding, ding. You would think that's something you would already know. But until he said that, a bell rang off in my head. And I was like, all these years I've been trying to force feed people who I am, accept me for who I am, accept me for who I am. But until I accept me for who I am, because once you accept yourself, you don't care what anybody else thinks. You don't care how anybody else perceives you. You don't care. And that's how I was. After I did that, I didn't really care. I didn't care if you didn't like my clothes. I didn't care if you didn't like my hair. I didn't care if you didn't like who I was. I'm still going to be who I was. And so I did end up encountering confrontations from that. I encountered rejection from that. I encountered a lot of things in church because I was not a conformist. I was not going to conform because I already knew who God had created me to be. And so that's where you encounter the confrontation. When you don't know who you are, you're stuck in this world of trying to fit in. But once you know who you are, it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to fit into your box. You can fit into your own box. So I encountered a lot of resistance. I'll put it that way.
So is rejection a demon?
Whether rejection is a demon or not a demon, I know it operates in that sphere. But sometimes God will use that to push you into another place. But that also goes with what the enemy means for evil, God will use for good. So I would say rejection does fall into that sort of demonic category because of how your perception of it is. Because whether or not because in order for it to be rejection, it's something that I have to accept as rejection. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, absolutely. You might not even be rejecting me, but I might feel that you are. So now is it a demonic? That's something that the enemy has put on the inside of me. So now it's working as poison. So then it becomes that. So it's working as poison because even though you may not have meant that to feel or be rejection, but I took it as rejection. So it's like a double-edged sword. It's like, but yes, and then there are people where it's like, you know what, I'm just going to reject you. I'm not going to look at you. I'm not going to do that. Those people, that's between them and God. That's something they're going to have to deal with because they might be doing it for a particular reason. Now, if they're doing it out of spite and they're doing it out of, I'm going to push you away or reject you because you don't meet my standards of who I think you should be, then yes, it's like, okay, because I don't have to necessarily meet your standards. That's not what God has called me to be. So in that sense, I would think that then that person is actually not operating out of love, because we're supposed to operate out of love, not out of ill. Especially in leadership, it's like, it's one thing to direct me in love or chastise me in love, and it's another thing to allow your feelings to come forth and chastise me. Because if you're operating out of your own feelings, then no, you don't want to do that. It's like our thing is operate out of love, and then to have that accepted in love. Because if it's operated out of love, then it doesn't sting like that. You could tell the difference.
Okay, let me ask you this. Is there an intersection where art and, let's call it, demonology, okay? Mm-hmm. The study and practice of demons and casting out demons. Is there an intersection between art and demonology?
Well, see, that I don't really understand that question, because I don't anything could fall into demonology. Anything, any person. It just depends on what they're operating out of. People, you can operate out of, I could sit here and write a book and be influenced. It just depends on the spirit that you're operating out of. It all depends on the spirit that person is operating out of when they're doing that. And you've encountered that in your craft. You're a rapper. So you've encountered in your craft, you can tell the different spirit that people are operating out of when they're doing their music.
Oh, absolutely. It's gotten to the point with me that within 5 minutes of talking to somebody, I almost have a report in my heart of major things that God has trained me to pick up on. Mm-hmm. And not necessarily for me to do anything, but just you pick it up. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I kind of asked that question is because I wanted to ask you another question, which was, is there an intersection between art, demonology, and mental illness?
Mm-hmm. Well, but that's just it. I feel that there's an intersection between everything that comes to art with art. Yes. If you're watching I'm doing a creative quarantine with 11 other artists, and some of them, they're talking about mental illness. They're talking about their struggles. On some of the shows, they're talking about the struggles that they have, perfectionistic issues. So there's a lot of things that artists are talking about. And so there's a cross between just being human. It's not just art, but it's like the banker, the doctor, everybody. There's always a cross section between all of these things. Everything can fall off the edge. Everything can get back on the edge. So there is no, it's like, and that's the whole thing with the church world had been that way, where it's like, art. They didn't know how to decipher artists, because artists were always all in this one box. And so it's like, they're an artist, so they're going to think different. They're going to dress different. They're going to act this way and they're going to act that way. When in reality, they had no idea what artists were and why God created artists. Because if you look at it, God created artists. He created those master builders. He created craftsmen. He created them. He created them to be that. He created them to be those craftsmen. And there was a reason why he did that. But people, and that's just it. It's like, I'm a creative being. Why? Because I was created by a creative being. So, and creativity resides on the inside of all of us. Some people just don't know how to tap into that creativity. And some people, their creativity is ministry or book writing or sewing or raising children. That is their creativity. So we all possess creativity. But when you put art on it, it's like, oh, they're an artist. Well, we're all artists in some way. We
Yeah.
all possess artistic talent. We all possess creativity. But because you have designated this person an artist, now we are so, in our society, we love putting people in boxes. And then we like to label those boxes. And then after we label those boxes, then we want to put commentary on those boxes and descriptions on those boxes. And then we don't want to move away from the description that's on the box. And God is saying, yeah, let me get an eraser, because that's not how that box should be labeled. And that's not the description that I created for that box. These artists are extensions of who I am. And it behooves you not to accept it.
That is some powerful. Now, the reason why I bring up the mental illness part is because Pastor Carla was instrumental in me being on my current path right now. There was a guy by the name of Adrian. Do you remember at all the Adrian situation?
I remember the name.
His name was Adrian Halfar, Halfar, and he was from Germany. And he was going to college down the street from the church. And he was attending church with everybody, part of the youth ministry for a little while and all of that. And I remember that he and I became friends, and you probably know more than anybody else that sometimes when you have a predominantly Black church, white people that may come, they may feel accepted for a little while, but it might be a little bit difficult sometimes for them to stay accepted. Am I saying that? What's the better way to say?
Well, it's just like when you go to a predominantly white church, you feel you're always looking for your own kind. I'm going to put it that way. And there is a lot of stigmas. I mean, we want to think that, oh, all white people are racist, but Black people are racist too. But we don't always want to mention that part of it. And so just like Black people struggle, white people struggle in an all Black church, because you still have a lot of the stigmas in the Black church. And so, and if you get a white person, or sometimes white females are more accepted than white males are accepted. Why? Because, oh, who do they think they are, or who they're trying to be, or they might step up and all of a sudden they just taken over, So you're going to still get that. And that's pride. It has nothing to do with God. It's just pride. It's operating out of pride. And we have to learn how to get over the pride. We have to put our pride aside and just learn how to accept people and work with people as God had intended. People say, I'll put it like this, people say the darndest things. And one of the things that I would challenge pastors with is be mindful of what you say and what you put out there, because I've had things said to me that would have torn up my marriage, that would have destroyed my relationships. And some people have listened to pastors and have had their relationships torn up or destroyed. So just be mindful. I'm just grateful because God has often pulled me aside and said, that's your husband. That's who I gave you. And I'm grateful that I have that kind of relationship with Christ, because the outside influence is not going to get in between me and God or me and my spouse. But a lot of times that kind of influence will, because people put pastors on a pedestal. And so if he said it, it must be. When God is saying, no. If I say it, it must be. Not if this man says it. You better hear it from me, not from this person. And that's one of the things that we have to be careful about, is who we're listening to and how we're acting upon what we're listening to. All these churches all these women running around these churches and leaving their husbands at home. Wake up. Wake up. Because God gave you a husband, and I don't care if he ain't right, then you pray that God get them right. But you better wake up and stop choosing your pastor over your spouse.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty powerful. This the Adrian story kind of goes like this, Louise, that when we talked, he would let me know that he would hear the F word and God. So effing God would repeat in his mind. And he would hear other words that he considered blasphemous. Because obviously anybody saying, the F word to God, that's considered blasphemous. And what he did was he went up for prayer, and that our church at the time was
Deliverance.
very heavy into casting out demons. What were you gonna say?
It's a deliverance ministry. Yeah.
It's a deliverance ministry, which means, when we're with you, we're gonna cast out the devil. And in this particular person's case, in Adrian's case, he was still dealing with it. And there was a choice on the part of the leaders to make him no longer part of the church. So he was, I don't know if the official term for that was excommunication, but he was no longer welcome. And I remember, you remember Brother Herb or Brother Herb? It's like Herb. Wait, Herb. And Spices? Is that the guy next to him? Is and Spices? But anyway, the other security person. So anyway, Herb came to me during service and said, hey, you got a visitor, Adrian's outside. Like, wow. And so I went outside, talked to him, because he wasn't welcome in. Like, wait a minute, you're not welcome in. So we had talked, and then Pastor talked to me and told me, don't communicate with him no more. So I was in that position where
you're catch-22.
Say it again. I've never heard of what a catch-22 is. What does catch-22 mean? I know what it means, but what's the origin of the term catch-22?
I'd have to look up the origin, but that's what it feels like, where it's like, okay, I like this guy, but now I'm being told something.
Yeah, I'm being told by a leader. And the thing about it is that I would not have known Adrian, just like I would not have known Otis, Anderson, Brian Harris, or
Oh, I can't hear you. Your sound.
Sorry about that. I got phone calls trying to come through.
Oh yeah.
I would not have known any of them had it not been for the setup at the church. And I don't know, nobody's ever told me don't talk to Otis no more. Nobody's ever told me don't talk to Pastor Chris no more. So this is the first time I've ever been told by a leader, don't talk to somebody who is a brother in Christ. And his problem seemed simple to me. His problem to me just meant that he needed to do some positive confessions, but maybe I was wrong, because what ended up happening is he flew back to Germany, and then he came back because he felt that this ministry had the answer. The way that we were teaching, or the way that deliverance was taught, made him feel that there was nobody else that could solve what he was
going through.
It needed to be cast out. And for whatever reason, everybody, he had all the men come around and never lay hands, and and so what ended up happening is he came back to Illinois and killed himself.
Oh God.
He jumped off of a a, a, uh, a parking garage or something like that. And so they gave me his final remains, and I still have it in my storage somewhere. His final remains, what he had was some pills and stuff like that, but he had a note, and the note was some instructions. And here's what he said. He said, first, first take these pills. Second, jump. Third, ask God to forgive him. Because it was messing with him. Now, when that happened, somehow now it's a church issue. I don't know how. I don't know all the details. And that's why I was wondering if you remember that situation at all.
I don't. I can't remember.
So this is where Pastor Carla put my life on a great trajectory. Okay. She told me, she said, Matt, and I believe youth ministry may have already been disbanded by this time, or in that same window.
Right.
Okay. That you were referring to. She said to me, Matt, don't listen to what nobody else says.
Thank you.
Follow what God says. And I wasn't used to Pastor Carla talking all the time.
Right.
I was used to hearing Pastor Brian talking. So these words coming from Pastor Carla were like so important because, first of all, she's actually talking to me. Like, wow, Pastor Carla. She remember my name, first of all. And she's talking directly to me. Like, I had to look around. Wait, you talking to me? And so she gave me that message, and I adhered to it. And I became, in the military, I became a suicide first responder, which meant that I learned to look for the signs of, when somebody's thinking about it, when somebody wants to. And I have had plenty of people in my life that, whether it's by me or whether it's by the context that we were in, they stayed alive. Because Pastor Carla put me on that road. I don't, and I thank God for her because, this next album that I'm working on, I am going to be talking about that because Pastor Carla, it was so instrumental in that. So, what I wanted to ask you again is, so do you remember, like you said, you kind of positioned and said that my sharing my rap music in front of the congregation on whatever certain times, that was part of the transition. Explain that transition if you don't mind, and kind of talk about.
Well, for me, it was a part. What I mean by that is it was part of the transition because at that time there was this divide in the church. It was a divide in the church. The youth ministry, it was almost like the youth ministry against the regular ministry, the assistant pastor against the regular pastor. There was this divide. And it always felt like us against them. And not because of us, because we didn't have an us against them mentality. We were just in our own world doing our own thing. But there always felt like there was this struggle because of what they wanted to do or what they wanted to see. Because honestly, the youth ministry was like, oh, here, take them. You take them and then just go with that. Just go with that. But then when the youth ministry started growing, then it was like, oh, what are they doing? What's going on over there? How come I'm not being aware of this? When it's like you could easily have come over at any point to be a part of it. But then there became this, oh, now you're taking over the youth and I'm not a part of it. okay, what is going on? What's going on? You guys are doing all this stuff. So then it became like this whole weird separation. And so then it was like, okay, well, I want to be a part of this. So I'm going to take parts of it and put it here to say that I do have my seal of approval on it and that I am in control of it, or I'm trying to gain control of it. That's what I mean. Whereas like when that started happening, it was a part of the, okay, this is my youth ministry. And if anything's going to go on in that youth ministry, then I'm going to put it, it's going to be a part of the church. And I'm going to bring you before the congregation. I'm going to bring this before the congregation so that everybody can see what I'm doing, what my church is doing in that sense. That's
so wait a minute. So this, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm not trying to take this the wrong way. Mm-hmm. But do you know that puts a different spin on my little rise in the church, mm-hmm. so to speak, because I really thought that I was genuinely liked. Mm-hmm. I thought that I was genuinely, being loved on, mm-hmm. and quote promote whatever, promoted, mm-hmm. or whatever, but if that was the mood behind it, then that means I was a pawn in the thing.
I mean, you were still liked and cared, I mean.
No, I know the whole church did. I know, but
right.
And again, I'm not talking about the whole pot. I'm just talking about, or I'm not talking about the whole baby and the bath. I'm just really talking about this cup of the bathwater, just this specific thing. Nothing. I don't take anything away from all of that because. Mm-hmm. So, but I want to delve into that cup a little bit. Mm-hmm. In other words, that was kind of a pawn. I was kind of a pawn in the middle of that, mm-hmm. unknowingly.
Right. Mm-hmm. Where it pushes, because that's when, if you think about it, that's when, there was a lot of things going on in the youth ministry at that time, and any number of people could have, but and the other thing is you were becoming a leader. You were becoming a leader in the youth ministry. You were taking on that mantle. And so if you look at any of the leaders, they were starting to bring more and more of the youth ministry over into the worship team, into this, into that. They were starting to bring more and more of the youth ministry over, trying to create that blend, but also trying to create that, okay, this is, the youth ministry are part of the ministry, but I want to make sure that I have a little more control over what's going on in the youth ministry. Because at that time, there was that whole, oh, you're trying to take over the youth ministry, you're trying to take over the youth. It was some weird stuff going on during that time. And so at that point, I left before the entire split. I left before that happened. But by then, I was already kicked out of the choir. I was kicked out of the worship team and all that kind of stuff. It was just really interesting. Some of the things that transpired during that time, because, by then I got married and some other things were going on in the ministry. And most of that was coming from the head down, not inside the ministry. There was a lot of things going on in the top part of the ministry that was trickling down to the rest of the ministry. And then there was this big split of the ministry. And so it was interesting. It was an interesting time. But, I think a lot of it got resolved, but it was, and at that time, that's when I pretty much left and, started going to my husband's church anyway, because we were, we went to church all day, every day, all the time. So, and I was, at that time, I loved it, but,
are you saying that at your husband's church, that you guys, you were home by dinner time? You were home?
Sure was every day. But I did miss my usual church routine, because that's, I grew up that way. That was all I knew for all my life was, you were in church all day, every day, all day. And throughout the week too. And so, but I was living in another part of I wasn't living in that area anymore. And so, I just believe that God orchestrates things. And so if it was time for me to go, I mean, I didn't care for the way that it happened or the way they did it. But
do you mind going into that a little bit? Whether you want to
well,
share how it's not,
it was just, I was just pulled aside one day and said, oh, well, pretty much it was like your services are no longer needed. I don't know. But just that, I had been singing with that worship team for a number of years, but a lot of elements boiled down to it. And there was some, like I said, when you know who you are and you don't fit with other people's perception of who you should be, you encounter resistance. And so I was encountering a lot of resistance from top people in that ministry. And so it was just a matter of time before, they wanted me to dress different. They wanted me to comply and be what they wanted me to be. And I just was not that person. And I was not going to be that person, because that's not who God created me to be. And I was just going to be who God created me to be. And I was going to live in that. And that's the life I live now today, is the person that God created me to be. And I love who God created me to be. And I'm grateful that I never conformed, because I find that when people conform, they get stuck. And they're stuck in their ministry. They're stuck in these ministries. And I believe that in order for us to grow, we have to evolve, and we have to continue to evolve in who Christ has created us to be. So
it's pretty powerful stuff. I mean, let's say the way you described it was that the devil, the enemy, wanted to break up and mess up the momentum. So let's say,
and he did, because he began to get rid of all of the key elements that were a part of that momentum. He began to orchestrate.
What were those key elements? Name those key elements.
Well, the pastor of the youth ministry, he began to break down all of the tiers that had been built up. And that in itself, and that's something we all allowed to happen. Let me get that. It's like because the whole thing is the only way the enemy can function and work within any structure is if we allow him to, because we have authority over all of those things. I'm not saying that the enemy can't do certain things. He can, because he is the governor of this world. But a lot of times as Christians, we allow the enemy to get in and work. We allow our pride, our selfishness, our self-centeredness. We allow ourselves to get caught up in whatever it is he's doing. And we're not praying, and we're not seeking God, and we're not doing the things that God has called us to do all the time. And then we allow the enemy, because we put so many things in place. We put so many religious things in place, and we put those things above God and his word. And so when you put religious things in place, how often you should pray and how you should be. And we design the perfect Christian or design the perfect saint. And then the enemy is like, oh, great. You doing all my work for me. I love it. Matt, you going to sleep. I was like, and so
no, I'm listening.
All right, so the enemy is like, I love this.
No. Hold on for a second. I know what I got to do. I got to do my Popeye spinach. So stay with me. Do a commercial for your website and my website.
Okay.
That is so cool what you did. I gotta do that. I have to get that. I gotta get it. I gotta get that song. That is so cool.
I sent you the link.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Because being on the road, I'm gonna set myself up so I can do what you're doing, but I got like several locations I'm trying to work out my little details in. That was the bomb. I love that commercial break. So all right, so go back. You helped me finally kind of realize that that my rise to the stardom was a fraud.
No, it wasn't, because everything God orchestrates everything. And what the enemy might mean for something else, God is orchestrating that for something, for his own goal. The reason why Matt is here today is because God put you here. That's where we miss it. See, we look at man rising us. Man did not rise you. Man did not put you where you were. Man did not put you in front of the congregation. Man did not put you on a Sunday morning singing the gospel. That's where we miss it. That's where we miss it. The pastor didn't bring Matt M. to the forefront for people to hear. God did. And that's where, because a lot of times that's what we miss. He's like, oh, great, this person is elevating me. No, that's how we end up leaving church. Because if that person don't elevate me, then they don't like me and I don't fit in and I don't this and I don't that. No, God elevates us. And if God doesn't elevate us, then we're waiting for God to elevate us. It doesn't have anything to do with man. But see, we're so big in our queue. Ooh, I can't wait till the pastor let me preach, or I can't wait till the pastor let me sing. I can't wait till the pastor. No, because when God wants you to preach, you'll preach. When God wants you to sing, you'll sing. It doesn't have anything to do with man.
It's fascinating because I held on to those days, and thank God I got video footage of a lot of stuff from those days. But I held on to the idea that was coming from the pulpit of raising people up and sending them out. And God did move me around. I'll tell you that much. My military career, I've traveled around the United States. But I sure did think that, I would be part of some prophetic team or something like that. And, right now, as just as a man looking back on that, I'm glad for the experience, because and I'm glad I'm still young. Like, I'm 44 right now. I'm glad I'm still energetic and young enough to leap tall buildings in a single bound. And now, I'm retired from the military. So I'm able to devote my whole day, if I need to.
Right.
To doing stuff like this.
Right. And doing what God has called you to be. And I believe that God takes us out of controlled out atmospheres so that we can actually walk in what he's called us to walk into. And yes, it's like, man, I believed I was going to be a part of prophetic ministry. Well, you are a part of a prophetic ministry. You're a part of Matt's prophetic ministry. I believed I was going to be a part of a team. You are a part of the team. You're a part of God's team. That's where we get it. That's where we miss it. It's like, because we're always looking, oh, put me in the team, coach, put me in the team. And God is saying, I already put you in the game. Put me on the game. And God's like, I already put you in the game. What you going to do? Come on. You're already in the game. You're already on the team. But we're so caught up in man putting us in the game, put us on the team. They didn't pick me. God said, it's okay, because I already picked you. I picked you. So what you going to do, because I picked you, but you waiting for this guy to put that seal on you when I've already sealed you. I've already put the approval on you. That's the key. It's like we're waiting for man's seal of approval. And God is saying, I've already put it on you. It's like the children of Israel that wanted the king. And God saying, you don't need a king because I'm here. But what happened? He gave them a king. Why? Because they wanted one. So what does God do with us on earth? It's like, okay, I've already put the seal on Louise. I've already put the seal on Matt, but they haven't accepted. So now they're waiting for this man to put a seal on. And what happens with man's seal of approval? It's flawed. It's flawed. And so now we're getting a flawed seal of approval when we already had the genuine seal. So we don't have to wait for a man's seal of approval because God has already given it to us.
So do you remember them talking about sent ministry versus went ministry?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So was that a flaw?
That's a form of control. It's a form of control. Because if I send you, it's a form of control because people don't understand that a sent ministry is sent by God, not by man. But if it's not explained that way, then it's, I have to send you. I have to send you. You can't just go. And so a lot of ministries that went out of there were condemned because they didn't get sent by the church when they did get sent by God. God is the one that sends us, not man. And so a lot of people lived with that negative feeling of, oh man, it wasn't approved by the church. It doesn't always have to be approved by the church. As long as it's approved by God, the church, it doesn't matter. Because that's not why God made the church.
Why did God make the church?
That's where we congregate. We congregate. It says don't forget the assembly of yourself together. We are the church. The church building is what I'm talking about. We're the church. The apostles, when he sent them out, what did they do? They planted churches. But it wasn't just for them to just, like, if you tell me you're an apostle, then what are you doing still sitting in a church? Because I don't know any of the apostles that sat in a church and stayed there. They were on the move. They were visiting. They were all gone. The apostles never had a church of their own. Not one. You can't go and show me any apostle in the Bible that had a church. So if you're an apostle, that means you are out there in the field, going from church to church, planting church to church, doing church work, doing what Paul and all of them did.
That's pretty doggone powerful.
That's an apostle. That's what I know of an apostle.
That is
writing letters, sending letters to the churches, encouraging the saints. That's what I see as an apostle. Evangelist, they on the street, ministering, preaching the gospel, sharing the word of God. Teachers teach.
So, it's funny because I had this thought, and I'm going to express it in an art way. Don't make me think that you're raising me up to send me out in sent ministry, when really this is a family ministry, where you just want people to come like we're going to the movies or we're coming to the show. Like, you want me to pay the money every week. You want me to sit down and be a good audience member. Say amen when you coach us to say amen.
Laugh at your jokes.
Laugh at your jokes. And I got a lot out of it that I've implemented in my life, but I thought we were all going somewhere, but we're still right here. And God, I remember him saying to me, it's time to leave, but I wasn't ready to receive God because he never said leave before.
All right. Because you weren't listening to God. See, that's God is like, I talk to these people but all they hear is the man. Because the same thing. It's like I talk to my people, but all they hear is the man. And I was there. I was in that same boat. But it's just like you said. I thought he was raising me up to do this. But God was raising you up. See, we get caught between God and man. And every time we choose man over God. So once again, we take God to man's level instead of bringing man to God's level. And so that's the whole key. It's like, you can't get caught up in man. You can't get caught up in, oh, okay, this man is raising me up to be this. No, he's not. Now, he might be a mentor or something like that, but the moment you take your focus off of God, the moment you stop hearing God and hear man more than you hear God, something's wrong. Because even though he might be speaking as out of the word, he's still speaking through his perception of what God wants, not the perception that God is trying to give you. If you want the pure, unadulterated word from God, then go to God for it.
Do you know, it's so funny that you reminded me of something. You remember Ronnie McKay?
The name sounds familiar, yeah.
Ronnie Snapshot McKay. He is the brother-in-law of Dominic Foster.
Okay.
Remember Dominic Foster?
Like, all the names sound familiar.
Okay, doggone it. We gotta get you a doggone. I'm gonna put a wall together.
Photos.
Exactly. So Dominic and Kat, they were brothers-in-law. They were related somehow to Ronnie, and I think his wife's name was Doris, but I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. Anyway, but Ronnie,
I remember Ronnie.
Yeah, you remember Ronnie McKay? Yeah, he had the camera all the time. Snapshot
Right.
McKay.
Right, yeah.
McKay. So Ronnie was sitting next to me in church one day, and so the pastor was talking. And it's why I love Ronnie McKay so much. I love him so much. I haven't talked to him in years. Here's what happened. The pastor was talking, and he said something about a pastor or the perspective of an evangelist, or the perspective of a pastor, or the perspective of a teacher, or the perspective of a prophet. He was mentioning their perspective, and what his point was is that person has their perspective, but what they need to have is the apostles' perspective. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, wait a minute. But if God made that person that specific gift, why do they got to take their brain off and have the apostles' brain on there? Why? And when my brain, as it was processing that, Ronnie was next to me, and he leaned over to me. He said, you basically just contradicted yourself. And in other words, he said the same thing that my brain was working on. I was showing him that, like, what? And I was like, man, thank you, Ronnie. That was another moment of, okay,
wake up.
He may not have been plagiarizing. Like
it was another moment of wake up. Right.
And the wake up thing that you said earlier about, wives following the pastor rather than their husbands, or I don't think that's what you said exactly, but
similar.
Can you expound on that a little bit more?
Okay, but then we got to go because you can take me into 2 hours.
Oh, wait, so how long did you want the show to go?
Oh, I know. My show only lasts an hour. Your show lasts forever.
Exactly. It just don't stop. Well, listen, we don't have to talk about these women in the church. Well, listen. So look, the last thing. Okay, so then the last thing that we'll do is we'll do two things. So let's play a game called Your Favorite Pieces Out of Your Catalog.
My favorite pieces? You mean my art pieces?
Yes, your art pieces. I know you can't show them on the screen, but name or describe 5 different pieces from your whole catalog, your whole life, that gave you the most joy in doing those.
Let's see, maybe not that one. That's my Christmas one. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
I should have some artwork on here. It's going to change my screens a little bit.
Okay.
We're going to change our screens a little bit because I have, okay, that's all Christmas. That was a fun one. We got some magazines. That was during my Christmas show. Look at Matt. You checking it out?
Well, I'm trying. Yeah, it's
seeing what all my backgrounds look like. Let me see what's over here. I don't know if I have. This is Creative Quarantine. Oh, I didn't put a lot of artwork in Creative Quarantine. I didn't even do a whole lot of backgrounds in Creative Quarantine. I was trying to see. I should have. You'd think I'd have some paintings up in here somewhere, right? It's like, Louise, you should have some paintings in here. But I do live shows, so I don't do a lot of
showing off.
Huh?
You don't do a lot of showing off.
No, I don't. Okay, those are some cards that I do. Let's take those off. Well, let's show, like, this actually is from a bronze piece that I have.
Whoa.
Called The Governess, but this is actually one of my catalog. This is actually one of my journals. And then this is from a painting, The Gatherer. And then this is The Fisherman of Men. So those are some of my pieces that I have.
Such detail.
And then, you can always buy cups from me. Those are my cups. I have some cups.
Nice.
So, but those are some. And then I have cards. Those are some of my cards. And these are some more of my cards here. My computer's working really
slow. Those are not postcards. Oh, those are cards like you write like a note to somebody.
They're like little note cards. Yeah. Yep. So those are some of my note cards that I do. I have my Family Feud game in the background. I'm just going to make it black. So I do a lot of different stuff and have a lot. Most of my work is, I love pretty much everything I do. I love everything I do because that's just who I am. So, yeah.
Well, that's one of the. It's always interesting because like my whole thing in terms of artists is a lot of times I can appreciate what somebody else is doing because of their own personal passion for it. And I just remember you being artful, you being witty, you being very down to earth when in meeting you for the first time or during those years. I remember just you being very big sister like to all of us, and it was necessary. And I didn't realize that you were dealing with the things that you dealt with. You told me a testimony of you were trying to do something to be a blessing and they wouldn't move their car. Good Jesus, good Lord, what's going on? And it's messed up that artists get why do artists get beat down like that a little bit?
Because people don't understand it. They don't understand artists. They don't understand the art world. They don't understand how we fit in ministries because they're constantly trying to fit us in ministry, but they don't know how we fit in ministry. And I think every church I've gone to, trying to figure out how this artist fits in a ministry, how to make this work in a ministry, how to structure this other than, oh, can you make a poster for us, or can you make this for us, or can you make that for us? Other than that, it's like, well, how do you make these people fit? They don't dress like you want them to dress. They don't act like you want them to act. They don't, so then it becomes tolerating. They tolerate the artist, but they don't really accept that person. They don't groom them or try to help them grow in any way. It's just, and so the artist ends up kind of trying to find their own way. And I'm grateful, like I said, that I know who I am. So I don't have to fit. It's like I'm just being myself wherever I go. I'm like, skip it. I'm just going to be who God called me to be. Until God tells me not to be that person, then that's when I will alter. And I find that a lot in just church in general. I think I find it a little less in white churches. The whole have to measure up to become something.
Right.
I find a lot in Black churches. I have to analyze you and make sure you're okay, and make sure you're right, and make sure you fit, and make sure you're doing all the right things before I let you do anything. I find that a little less in white churches, where you come in and it's like, oh, you have a gift? All right, let's share that gift. I find that a little less.
Oh, yeah.
So, whereas in Black churches, it's like they got to examine your gift. They got to try your gift. They got to all that kind of stuff. But
you gotta be tithing for so long, and
right, you gotta have I gotta put a seal. We gotta try you. Right, try you in the fire. That kind of stuff. You can't just come in saved, sanctified, and filled with the Holy Ghost. I gotta make sure. You gotta do their whole rigmarole. So yeah, it's interesting. All right, Matt, we got 4 minutes. Give me something. What do you want to say? What do you want to tell people?
All right, 2 things. I become irresponsive to my feelings. I'm walking by decrees. Would it be a my decider? What is shall is what I see. It's hard to calculate the fullness and relate my faith and pull it in. What definition put it like the sovereign breath for many visions? Each one a mission, full with provision to precision. To stick when I'm sitting to the harvest, hearken, listen. Line up on line, we'll build this precept as we step in a familiar district. So get set and get this. It's not about the limelight or thick checks. Anointing is where I get lyric strength, so I can speak to dead bones and make them crack the casket, pierce the soil. Cause the word is like the oil flowing through this broken vessel like a lasso. Captivating, I wrestle with those vacillating with the text. I grapple till I have them in the kingdom. That's part of the agenda. Forcefully advancing, vigorous expansion of domain. Now my purpose was written in the fibers of my DNA. You see that, hey, I can't help but to be this way and see this way and speak this way. Because when I was a fetus in a belly, I was given this vocation and this administration. How could I mistake what the Rhema spake? Jokers want to roast me like a steak with their religious thinking. So I'm walking by my confidence, or warranted deed or evidence. So I won't be hesitant in all my business. So the last thing I'll say, thank you, Louise. If there are any singers or rappers or comedians or preachers that desire to put their art on Spotify or whatever, I prepaid 550 albums. So I've already paid for them. So I can give anybody a record deal so they can save a few dollars on putting it into the system. And so if they want, all they got to do, join my team. m3dots@yahoo.com is my email address.
Okay.
My website is m3dots.com. And listen, come on, join my team, and then, we put music on each other's album and we grow, because over this next several years, we about to have a good time.
You need to get with Wayne. He's still rapping too.
Wayne?
My oldest son.
You got wait a minute.
You don't remember Wayne? Wayne was a part of the youth ministry.
Put his picture up. Well, we got 2 minutes left. You got a picture of Wayne?
Hold on. I'm gonna close out. Give me a second. Boom.